So is universal health care a good idea for the U.S.? Here to sound off are two of America's Voices, radio talk show host Ellis Henican and Heidi Harris from KDWN Radio in Las Vegas. So I love this segment. 1 minute on the clock. The first 30 seconds goes to Ellis. Ellis?
Well, listen, I don't want to have an exact duplicate of the Canadian system, but there is a principle here we got to get our hands around. Sick people ought to get medical care regardless of how much money they have. We are decent people. We have values that require that, and we're smart enough here in America to figure out the mechanics of how to do it. Do not use some little problem somewhere else to give us an excuse to not do what's right. Don't look into the eyes of that sick kid and say, no, sonny, you can't get medical care. Your mommy doesn't have enough money. We're better than that, and I'll bet you even Heidi will agree with that.
Wow, almost to the second. Heidi, you're up. 30 seconds.
All right. First of all, they have waits at times, obviously, in Canada and also in England, long waits. And they're telling people in England, you smoke, you can't get heart surgery. What you have is rationing. Even if you believe that health care is a right, health care is not a right. It's a commodity. If you have the money, you get to buy the best. And people in Canada who have money come here to get their medical care. Just like people in different states will go anywhere in the world to get the best medical care. It's not a right. It's not in there with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So that's the wrong premise.
Okay. Next topic. A symbol of support for troops is stirring up controversy in one community outside Boston. That's because a condo complex is telling its residents they have to take down yellow ribbons displayed on porch posts outside the homes. The condo board told residents in the 55 and over community they can put the ribbons on their doors, but they have to remove the ribbons from common areas or face a fine. Some residents say they've always put ribbons up and don't see what the big deal is.
Naturally, I want to support the troops. I mean, I'm 70 years old. I've lived a wonderful life in the United States. Why? Why wouldn't I?
So should a condo association ban yellow ribbons to honor troops because the ribbons technically violate complex rules? Our showdown, 1 minute on the clock. First 30 seconds to Heidi.
Put them on the door. That's what the rules allow. Listen, if you want complete freedom, you don't live in a homeowners association. You can put up yellow ribbons on the post today, pink breast cancer ribbons, red AIDS ribbons. I mean, it becomes a whole parade of people trying to make statements. They're allowing them to be on the doors, and that should be what the residents do, and they shouldn't be complaining about anything else.
You know, Ellis, some people say this isn't a big deal, but everybody has the back and forth over this. What do you think?
Oh, gosh, some of these condo officials, they're like little dictators going around with their magnifying glasses and their riding crops and saying, no, 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 you can't do this. Listen, come on. These are yellow ribbons for a wonderful cause. And Heidi, I'm not offended if someone wants to put a breast cancer ribbon up there. They're not disturbing anybody. These condo officials, they need to take a deep breath, get a little bit of perspective, and quit taking their tiny little bit of power and acting like the little dictators that they are up there in Boston. Give it up.
Last topic in our showdown here. Just one day from reporting for training camp, an NFL hopeful finds out he'll have to report to Uncle Sam, Sam instead. On Wednesday, the Army told Caleb Campbell he would have to serve at least 2 years of active duty before he could start his pro football career. The Army had told the Detroit Lions draft pick and West Point graduate they would make an exception to the service rule. Campbell says he was disappointed by the ruling, but says he's excited for his next assignment. So should Campbell be allowed should he put on shoulder pads or Army fatigues? Let's go back to the clock. Ellis, you're first.
Listen, he's the class act here. He's the guy who's living up to his obligations, living up to the promises he made. It's the Army in this case that ought to be looking in the mirror and feeling guilty. Oh, by the way, do you know what the duty is they need him for? It's not to fight in Iraq or in Afghanistan. He's going to be assigned to be an assistant coach on the football teams of one of the military academies. I'm sure that's important, but they made this guy a deal. They were happy to have him. He's been a great soldier at every step of the way. They ought to let him go play football and figure out some way he can meet up to his obligations otherwise.
All right, Heidi, 30 seconds.
Listen, when he got into West Point, they hadn't changed the rule. So he knew going into West Point that if he wanted an NFL career, that was not the place to go. You go to Notre Dame or someplace else. Yes, the Army told him temporarily that he could go into the NFL, but you know what? He's got an obligation. He got a great education at West Point. He should fulfill it, and I applaud him, by the way, for not whining about it. He's got an obligation to the Army, and so he should fulfill it, and he's going to do that, it looks like.
With 1 second to spare. I love that segment. Varied topics. Ellis, Heidi, you're the best. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Good to see
Brett.
you guys. Have a
Appreciate
great Sunday.
Thanks.